What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome into a very special first or original call to post here on the First Off the Bench podcast network. The reason I say special, obviously, we are going to be talking about the Haskell Stakes, which is, outside of the Triple Crown, maybe one of the more prestigious stakes races in the country. We're also going to be talking about Del Mar opening weekend. And look, if you know anything about the history of this podcast, Del Mar is the centerpiece of it. And if that wasn't special enough, we have Craig Dado, the Executive Vice President of Marketing and Executive Vice President of the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club, with a very special interview when he sat down with Raider Jim. We'll have that after we do talk about the Haskell, so make sure you stick around for that. Very, very exciting stuff. And of course, I have to introduce my co-host who made this all possible, Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. Mr. Martinez, how you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm doing well. This is right up there with Christmas Eve. It's the day before opening day at the Del Mar racetrack. And what a difference, as I say, when I talk to Craig, what a difference a year makes. Here we are, everybody's getting ready for a full house at Del Mar. The racing starts tomorrow. It's going to go through Labor Day, and I just can't wait to get to the track.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And obviously the weather will always cooperate here in San Diego. Very few places in the city that you would rather spend a warm summer day than Del Mar Thoroughbred Club. And as you said, it's a return to normalcy, or at least getting there. And, about a month and a half of racing. And then, we take a deep breath and we get ready, of course, for the Breeders' Cup, which is, of course, going to be at Del Mar. And myself and Raider Jim will be waking up tomorrow morning and getting those tickets, or at least getting in that line, if you will, to get our chance at some tickets for the Breeders' Cup. Really exciting there. And it's a perfect segue into, of course, the Haskell Stakes. We'll be running at Monmouth on Saturday. Also, a little side note, there is, of course, at Monmouth, you will also have the United Nations Stakes as well. That's going to pay $500,000. Big names like Arklow will be in there. And then I don't know if this is, I'll actually ask you, I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot here, Raider Jim, but obviously the United Nations Stakes, a grade 1. It seems like a very international field in the United Nations Stakes. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, but obviously, with Arklow, mainly as the big favorite there, but a lot of international flavor in that race.
Great lead, and no, you're absolutely right. That's intentional. Gotcha. And so, but Arklow, the hands down favorite right now at I think it was 8-5 is what I saw. It might have been 8-5. Yeah, 8-5 coming out of the 1 position, I believe. And that's Brad Cox. Florent Giroux is going to be riding that one. What a great horse. But I will tell you, if you don't mind, before we get to the stakes, the Haskell Stakes, there is a horse in this race that I'd keep my eyes on the money line, and that's going to be the 6th horse, Winner's Back. And right now at 8-1, but this horse has some speed. And I would keep an eye on that one. I definitely put it on my ticket. Will definitely be on my ticket as a horse to finish in the money. I know there's the number 10 horse Tribuvan at 3-1. Chad Brown and Flavian Pratt's going to be riding that one. Also another horse you have to watch out for. It's going to be a great race. It's definitely one you want to watch. It is race 11, and the Haskell Stakes is going to be race 12. So you might as well watch both of those on Saturday.
Definitely. And there are also going to be some grade 3s there at Monmouth Park. This is pretty much, at least for this meet, kind of the big day there at Monmouth. And of course, it is the Haskell Stakes. A big reason why we're talking about this is, look, it's $1 million purse first and foremost, and in horse racing, money talks. But the winner heads to the Longines Classic. And what kind of makes the Haskell Stakes maybe a little more different than others is this is only for 3-year-olds. So we're talking about a lot of horses that we spent the first half of this year talking about in relation to the Triple Crown. Of course, their 3-year-old season. And just a little bit of history. I put my Raider Jim hat on, and went looking for, of course, the Haskell Stakes. And myself growing up, we only had one, myself, my dad, we only had one TV in the household, so we had to share it. And there were a lot of days begrudgingly watching Leave It to Beaver on TV Land. And no, it's not the Eddie Haskell Stakes. We're not naming it after that little piece. And I'm sure there are plenty of people out there that hopefully will get that reference, maybe not, but it is Armory Lawrence Haskell. That's the namesake of this race. He was the first president and chairman of the Jockeys Club at Monmouth Park. And now, of course, as I said, the Haskell Stakes is one of the biggest races right behind, the Derby and those other Triple Crown races for the 3-year-olds. I'm going to take the lead here on this one, at least to start for myself. One horse that kind of jumps out to me on the rail, it is Following C. I think this is a really nice spot, at least post position for this race. It's 1-2 straight at lower classes, but it did win, did put up buyer scores of 97 and 100. I think that will make it a bit of a factor. It's going to have a lot of early pace, has to get on the lead early in this race. Obviously, when it comes to the Haskell and you're talking about 3-year-olds, the favorite here in this one is the Belmont runner-up in Hot Rod Charlie. Obviously, we spent a lot of the year talking about this horse. I really do expect to see this horse continue to move on. 6-5 for me, maybe not a ton of value there. I'm going to look at an old friend of mine, a horse that I feel like maybe I've spent the whole year just kind of talking about, has been Midnight Bourbon. We will see the return. We finally saw this horse run really well in the Preakness. Wasn't good enough to win. And to be honest, look, a 96 isn't probably going to be good enough to win this race, but I definitely think at 9-2, worth an in the money spot. You also do have, of course, Mandaloon, a horse that many say technically will be the Kentucky Derby winner after, of course, running up to Medina Spirit. But I will say this horse did take a step back in the Pegasus. It did win the Pegasus, but dropped down to a 94 after a 101 in the Kentucky Derby. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on the Haskell Stakes?
Yeah, before I get down to what horses I like, I want to tell you, I've never been prouder of you to bust out some Cliff Clavin trivia. That means you're paying attention to me when I talk. And that was definitely one in my notes, is where did this race come from? It was actually started in 1968, which makes me older than the Haskell Stakes. And when it started, it was the Monmouth Invitational Handicap, and it was run on the last day of the racing season in 1968. Horse named Balustrade finished in the winner's circle for the first running of it at 33-1 with a Canadian jockey on board, Eric Walsh. 2 times since then, the $1 million purse was actually increased. It was increased in 2002 to 1.5 million when the Derby and Preakness winner War Emblem was entered into the Haskell Stakes. The only other time that the purse was raised was in 2015. They raised it, bumped it all the way to $1.75 million. And that was because American Pharoah ran. And of course, American Pharoah did the only thing it knew how to do, went out and beat the field. So those are the only 2 times. Other than that, it has been the consistent $1 million purse. Great track. Monmouth has been one of those that's been around, and it will be around for a long time. It's a small field in the Haskell Stakes. You hit on the 4 horses. It's 7 horses, 7 entries. And my notes, the way I wrote my notes, it says 7 entries. It's a 4-horse race, starting with Hot Rod Charlie. Of course, you and I are both big fans of trainer Doug O'Neill, or every one of these trainers, actually. But Hot Rod Charlie with Flavian Pratt on board, I don't really know that there's another combination that is going to beat Hot Rod Charlie in this race. Hot Rod Charlie, did well, and the next and is again at 6-5. Mandaloon is the 2-1 horse. Mandaloon's going to be running, let's see. I had the post position
3.
down. 3. Okay, running out of the 3 spot. And, lost to essential quality. There's no essential quality in this race, but Brad Cox does have another entry. And that other entry, of course, is down here. That would be, I think that is the following seat. is his other horse. Now, going back to Mandaloun with Laurent Giroux on board, nothing to sneeze at. You were right, though. That's exactly what my sentiments are. Dropped down to a grade 3, nothing wrong with that. Had a respectable race and ran very, very well. But we'll see what happens, because the other horse you do have to watch for this is Midnight Bourbon, one of your favorite horses out there, running out of the 6th spot. This is a Stephen Asmussen horse, and Stephen Asmussen is on the brink of achieving like an all-time winning record for trainers. So congratulations to him as he approaches that historic mark in his career. He had now Midnight Bourbon, and not to rub salt in an open wound, he had a fantastic Preakness. He truly, truly did. He actually, going around the home turn, took over Medina Spirit, had that race, should have been his race to win. All he had to do is make it down the home stretch. Unfortunately, Flavian Pratt was riding Rombauer, realized that Rombauer had a 5th gear, shifted down, and boom, that was it. No pun intended, off to the races, and just blew by the field. So other than that, it was a great race run by Midnight Bourbon. Another thing that you want to pay attention to with this race is, as a rule, Mike Smith is the jockey that rides Midnight Bourbon, and he will not be on board on Saturday. It will be a local guy, Paco Lopez, will be on board. So I don't know why Mike Smith isn't running. I believe I saw his name on a couple of the mounts at Del Mar, so hard to say why he's not, but he will not be on board. Following C, as you stated, good horse, a lot of potential, could be an undercard in the money if you want to put that on your ticket to give yourself an extra combination. But my concern is 3 for 3 in the money, 2 in the winner's circle, but 6, 6.5, and 6. Though that quarter-mile difference in the distance is a lot to ask of a horse. Can you, if you're a 100-meter runner, and all of a sudden you say, can you do the 220? Well, some guys can do the 200, some guys can't. So we'll see how the horse reacts and responds. After that, you round out the field with Anti-Gravity out at the 2 spot at 30 to 1, Pick and Time 20 to 1 at the 5 spot, and then Basso is running out of the 7 spot at 30 to 1. I don't see any of those horses being a threat to the field. No spoilers. Weather's supposed to be okay, so the track should be fast. So again, my picks, it's going to be, you're going to see Hot Rod Charlie in the winner's circle. I think Midnight Bourbon's going to pull at least place in this one, and Mandaloun might end up in the 3rd spot.
Yeah, I agree, especially just going back to Following C. That was also one of my notes, that distance will be a factor. In the notes from the DRF, they did kind of bring up that Todd Pletcher, the trainer of Following C, has a history, or at least has a good history, of turning those horses from sprints to routes. But I don't know if the Haskell's the time to do that. I mean, that's a big time. It's kind of like you said, that going from 100-meter to the 220. It's one thing to do that at an event in Oregon. Well, this is kind of like running it in the World Championships or the Olympics. Like, you might want to prep for this just a little bit. And another part of Following C is when you look at this horse, the numbers, they're going to jump out to you in terms of what this horse can do early. And as a bettor for a horse that's now going from 6.5 furlongs to now 1 mile and 1/8, if you get to pick, you'd want this horse to be kind of a closer, not an early, because I could very well see this horse kind of gassing out late and maybe getting ran down. And at 3 to 1, I just don't quite know if I'm ready to to put my money to see if this horse can do it. I think it will be interesting to see what the horse, the line, I should say, does with this horse, because like you brought up countless times, is there are a lot of people in that paddock that maybe know some things that we don't, and sometimes the line is more indicative than what you might think. You think you can beat the house, and all of a sudden you realize the house was had that bit of information. For Anti-Gravity, the 2 horse, the only reason I'm going to bring this horse up is it's you don't see too many 3-year-olds. This will be its 13th career race, and a well-seasoned, obviously, horse. It's won 2 straight, but it took 10 races to break its maiden. Was racing in some pretty high levels, but Really just kind of the one thing I will say, anti-gravity definitely at the very least brings experience, definitely really doesn't bring speed or anything. And the last thing I will say is about my friend, of course, Midnight Bourbon. The one, I guess, somewhat negative here is the best races this horse has run has still not been enough to get him in the winner's circle. And it's been against these horses. It's lost to Mandaloon. It's lost to Hot Rod Charlie. Obviously, it lost to Rombauer. And those were some of its best races. So I think definitely a place show ticket for Midnight Bourbon is something that you'll feel okay doing. As long as we don't see kind of what we saw in the Preakness where the money kind of went to Midnight Bourbon. This was a horse that was kind of, 4-1. And then all of a sudden dropped to 7-2, I think, when it was all said and done, something I was definitely a little surprised by. But the Haskell Stakes, obviously earning you a trip to the Longines Classic. And for any 3-year-old, it's obviously an opportunity. All these horses, they've had good Triple Crown seasons, but none of them got the ultimate goal of winning the Kentucky Derby. Even if Mandaloun is given it post haste or after the fact, they still feel like they left something on the table. A chance to win the Haskell and then do well in the Longines Classic will be a very fitting end to a 3-year-old season for any of these horses. But first and foremost, you got to get there and you got to win the Haskell. So
one more note on following seed, for the folks like me and you as well, sometimes you do look at pedigree. Following seed does come out of Quick Flip and Run Happy, which is a fine pedigree. So definitely has the genetics to do it, but has not been tested at this distance against this caliber of competition. So wouldn't be a real surprise, I don't think, for this horse to finish in the money, but is going to have to put together one heck of a race.
Yeah, and I just think there are so many, in the following seed, there's so many things not working against it, but that will at least turn you off on this horse, whether it is the fact that, look, its last race was an allowance race. You're going from an allowance race to a grade one. And not just a grade one, the Haskell, that will get you into the race of the year if you win it. And then we're also talking about the distance. Fine horse, once again, 3-1 with 2 big question marks. That cools me off a bit to it. But if this horse ends up in the money or even in the winner's circle, I would not be terribly surprised. I'll definitely be kind of kicking myself. But once again, it won't get money from me, but it will get a look from me maybe in a down the road further, especially if it does what it could possibly do here. But with that, it is time to focus our attention on the beginning and the opening day of Del Mar. And as I talked about at the beginning, in honor of Del Mar opening day, Raider Jim was able to sit down with Craig Dado, who was able to kind of give us the rundown of obviously this past year. I don't have to tell anybody. It's been a big upheaval. It's been a big, long process of figuring out how you communicate, how you do business. And it's no exception was Del Mar. And with that interview, here it is to let us all know how it all went down. Once again, thanks to Craig Dado and Raider Jim.
Absolutely.
But without further ado, here we are.
Hey everyone, it's Raider Jim Martinez coming to you from sunny San Diego, California, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network and the original Call to Post, the show where we bring you real and factual conversation about everything that is thoroughbred racing. Well, the 4th of July is behind us and the summer is underway. The sun's out, the masks are off, and in Del Mar, the surf is hitting the turf. That can only mean one thing. It can only mean we're days away from opening day at the Del Mar Racetrack. The Del Mar Racetrack, thoroughbred racing's crown jewel of the West Coast. What a difference a year makes. And as we all know, 2020 was a year like no other we've ever witnessed and will hopefully never see again. Every walk of life, every industry was affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. No one escaped the wrath of COVID. That included thoroughbred racing and the Del Mar Racetrack. From the spring of 2020, the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club was in a constant state of mandated flexibility until opening day and then some. When the starter bells rang on the Del Mar's 2020 summer session, it was a great start to the race. Great but short-lived, with a lot of bumping before the season even got into the back stretch. With focus and determination, the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club held onto the reins, and for all of the bumps and challenges, by the time they entered into the home stretch, the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club kept its lead over COVID and by season's end rode its way into the winner's circle. With the constant threat of COVID looming, a shortened race calendar, quarantines, and no race fans in the stands, between the 2020 summer session and fall's Bing Crosby session, the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club ran a fantastic race, putting together the second most successful season in track history. So how did the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club face the challenges and adversity brought about by COVID? How did they achieve such a high level of success while continuing to maintain their position as one of the nation's safest racetracks? What challenges lie ahead for the 2021 summer and fall sessions? And of course, what work is already underway as Del Mar prepares to serve as host for the 2021 Breeders' Cup in November of this year? Well, we're about to get answers to all those questions. Last week, it was my pleasure to speak with the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club's Chief Marketing Officer and Executive Vice President, Craig Dado. Craig was kind enough to take time out of his busy schedule to answer these questions and more for the original Call to Post. Craig even provides us with a prediction for a record-breaking handle he foresees this coming August. You'll hear it here first on the original Call to Post. So grab a beverage, sit back and relax as Craig Dado tells us how the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club developed such a successful race plan in 2020. On behalf of myself and the original Call to Post, we wish continued success and the best of luck to the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club. And I'd be remiss if I didn't offer a huge thank you to a great friend of the original Call to Post, Craig Dado. Enjoy the interview and enjoy the 2021 Del Mar racing season. Riders up.
Okay, it's Raider Jim Martinez for the original Call to Post and the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. We have a special guest with us today, which we're very pleased. It is none other than Craig Dado from the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club, Executive Marketing Officer for them. He is going to answer some questions for us regarding what does it take to keep Del Mar running and what was it like to be part of the historic pandemic that we all went through. Craig, just real briefly, again, thank you for taking a few minutes of your day to be with us. And just so I can refamiliarize you with where I came to be, years ago, I got to know Scott Kaplan and Billy Ray Smith, and from there, I was asked to be one of the guys who came on and did some NFL Raider broadcasting, if you will, not so much broadcasting, but just weekly reports. And from there, once 1090 went by the wayside, a few of the gentlemen decided to go into the podcast field, and they asked me if I would participate. I stuck with NFL, did some NCAA basketball, and then they found out I knew just enough about horses that I could waste people's time on Thursdays. So here I am. So that's where we came to be. And it was about a year ago, it was in March, and we were just getting ready to cover March Madness. And I had my eyes on the Creighton game and all of a sudden found out that the kids got pulled off the court. And that was the first domino that fell in what became known to us all as the pandemic. Then on March 27th, we had another domino fall when the LA County Health made its decision to shut down Santa Anita Racetrack. And that was a real blow to the thoroughbred racing industry, of course. And a good friend of mine up in LA, Tim Conway Jr. on KFI 640, because he and his dad were big fans of the track. God rest his dad's soul. And then I know that it was really unsure on what was going to happen with thoroughbred racing. Aidan Butler from the Stonich Group had made a statement and said, we're just going to work closely with all the municipalities and agencies and follow their directions and try to negotiate positions with them. The California Horse Racing Board, even faced with the pandemic, they seem to take a very non-committal response. And I don't know if you feel it's the same or if that was the best they could do. They simply made a statement saying, hey, we're just going to wait and be told what we can do. Do you think they should have been a little more assertive, aggressive, or do they have to be very careful when they're dealing with these entities?
So that's a good question. So we dealt with the governor's office out of Sacramento, and then probably more directly, we dealt with the San Diego health department. And I think maybe the CHRB figured they're a little out of their lane to be getting into infectious disease matters. Let's leave that up to the experts. And that's who we worked with. And they were great to work with. And, as you know, we didn't have anybody here last year. We had a few owners eventually come in, but we were basically crowdless. And we just wanted to put a show on and keep racing and keep betting on us. And that was not easy. When we have 1,800 horses living here, there are 600 people who live with those horses 24 hours a day on the backside. So it's like a little community. And can you imagine if that community, there would have been a breakout of COVID, they would have shut us down. So we really had to rely heavily on the San Diego Health Department to help us with our protocols, help us with our testing, to make sure we got through the season. And thank God, knock on wood, we made it.
Right. Yeah. As a matter of fact, and one of the other parts of that was, so where did the activists come into play? Because I know that even before COVID, there are always the activists year in and year out. Horse goes down, be it at Del Mar, Santa Anita, Los Al, anywhere. The activists come out and they push hard to shut down thoroughbred racing. And if I'm not mistaken, there was at least a small faction of that group that was posturing hard, saying, now's the time we shut this whole operation down. Did that really affect Del Mar too much?
It didn't really affect us, but it was interesting to note. I mean, they're a little bit disingenuous in that they talk about how Del Mar's unsafe, and now for the third straight year, we've been the safest racetrack in the country. A lot of people don't realize this, but with the 2,000 horses on the backside, last year during races, we lost in both meets combined a grand total of 1 horse. So are we really that unsafe? But yet they still continue to badger us and harass us about ending horse racing. And then they see an opportunity with COVID. And now these same people, whose mantra has always been for the good of the horse, safety of the horse, are now on to COVID as the reason why we should be out of business. So it really doesn't make any sense. But we do the best we can. We respect them for their opinions and we move on.
Right. And you know what I like doing about these Q&As with professionals in any industry? We spoke to one of the members of the original Gonzaga team that put Gonzaga on the map in basketball. And he pretty much led me through my questions. So you're doing the same right now. I'm going to jump ahead because down the road I had down to talk about the horse safety, the Racing Safety and Integrity Act. I had an opportunity to speak with Matt Sonnenborg, who was is the communications director for Congressman Paul Tonko out of New York, who was the co-author of the bill. And really my point is, what does Del Mar do differently? Why do you have such a high safety standard, successful safety standard? And why can't the other racetracks around the country take a look at what Del Mar is doing? Or do they reach out to you and they just go, hey, that's great, good job, and pat on the back? Because it seems to me Del Mar is the benchmark for safety.
Well, we had to be the benchmark for safety because when we had some troubles 4 years ago and had some horse catastrophic injuries, I should say, that wasn't okay with us. And the media really lambasted us, and maybe they should have. And we said, look, we got to make a change. So we could put in a bunch of other new protocols that had to do with adding new vets. We changed the track a little bit. We changed a little bit of horse testing. We did all kinds of things and made it our number 1 priority for horse safety, because if we didn't, who knows how bad things would have gotten. So we've been very fortunate, as I mentioned, the last 3 years that we've been the safest track in the country. And a lot of the new protocols that are in this bill are things that, of course, we're already doing. So I would expect all the other tracks to get to where we are here shortly. It's not like it's anything magic. We're very open about what we do. But I think overall, Jim, I think it's really a culture change. And I think it starts with the owners and trainers. I think that they now are much more careful with their horses, maybe compared to what they were doing 30 years ago. And I think that's a great thing. And that's really good for racing.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 110%. And again, congratulations and kudos to Del Mar for the safety that they have instilled and made. They're showing everybody it is possible to do this. I've witnessed one track incident, and it was at Los Al a couple of years ago, race 1. And 2 went down. And I tell you what, first time I ever saw it in my life, last time I hope I ever have to see it in my life, because it was just, it really, I stuck around one more race and then I just went back to my hotel. I couldn't even continue to stay there and watch. So again, congratulations. Going back to those 600 people that work for Del Mar, there are so many different positions that people may not realize. You got farriers, you got the outriders, you got clockers, you've got the people that, the track officials themselves, all your admin staff. That's a lot of responsibility for the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club to shoulder. But they did, and they did so. I mean, here it is. It was like wildfire. March through April, one by one, things were shutting down. It was up in the air as to whether or not Del Mar would even see opening day. As it got close to May and I knew that the Derby was not going to run because they had made the official announcement, I can't imagine what it was like to be in the inner sanctum of the Thoroughbred Club and what you were up against. At least in May, you found out you would get to host the summer season. But did you guys ever feel like you should be wearing shirts that said Everlast on it? Because in the middle of all that, one day in May, you get to announce that you're going to open up, and the next week or the next day, you're having a press conference to discuss the horse racing tragedies that you had to deal with, which you just referred to last July. So it was, I mean, they must have had crisis intervention on site for you guys for the entire length of this thing.
I tell you, my job as the head of marketing has obviously changed considerably from when I started. I'll be honest with you. The biggest problem I used to have back in the day was people smoking weed at the reggae concert. And I long for those days. Now I got to deal with horse safety, COVID, you name it. Crisis management has been a very important part of my job. So let's hope, starting with 2021, things will turn around. We'll get back to normal here shortly.
Give some praise and kudos to the names Ann Hall, Kim Jacobson, and Dr. Ghazala Sharif. How important were they to Del Mar Thoroughbred Club during this whole thing to write and develop and then implement the plan? So
I'm good for you to come up with those three names, because if you'd have said, Craig, give me the three MVPs, those would have been the three MVPs I would have said. Those are the right people. You're good. Yeah, they did an amazing job, tireless, worked just crazy hours. And without them, as I said, what if we would have had an outbreak on the backside and all the people take care of the horses had gotten sick? I mean, we'd have been done. There's no question. So the protocols they put in place worked really well, and we made it through. And, you know, when we raced that last day, we looked at each other and just had a big exhale, big relief. We made it. So here we are this year. We're excited to have people this year, and we think we're sitting on one of our best seasons ever this year.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. And I'll tell you what, somebody needs to put together how to handle business continuity from the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club perspective, because you guys did a fantastic job at that. So opening day rolls around. You guys pushed it back to July 10th. Opening day is here. Umberto Rispoli, 3 trips to the winner's circle. Flavian Pratt, he has 8 mounts, gets to the winner's circle one time. Then he packs his bag, he goes back to Keeneland, and everything's looking great. And then he came back. And when he came back, I'll never forget opening up the sports page, or the notice came through on my phone, I think from Blood Horse Racing or one of those, and it said, Flavian Pratt tests positive. I said, well, if he tested positive, he was just in the clubhouse in the jockey room at Del Mar. What's going to happen? So then what was the response then? I mean, I know how Del Mar responded, but what was the internal reaction from everybody? Phones must have been blowing up.
We were scared to death. Well, I'll be honest with you, we were scared to death. So we had to do a number of things. You know, I don't know if you've ever been in the jockey room, but it's a typical sports locker room, and these guys are close to each other, and in our opinion, way too close. And in the opinion of Dr. Sharif and the county health board, they agreed. So we had to build a secondary jockey room. We didn't have anybody in the stands, so we had plenty of room to build it, and basically spread out the jockeys room so these guys could stay, you know, well away from each other. And that's what we had to do. And again, we got through the season. Right.
So at any point, I mean, it was tough going into the spring, waiting for a decision on whether or not they would allow you to host a season. They allow you to host a season, with all the restrictions, but Del Mar puts up 250,000 and creates this great home within a home and safety environment for all the workers. Then this happens. how close was it? Because it seems like at times the season was on life support. How close was it to ever pulling the plug?
You know, most of our meetings were going over different scenarios. If this happens, we'll do this. If that happens, we'll do that. But I don't think we ever got to the point where we were going to cancel. So we stayed the course. And, you know, and here's the crazy thing about the season. We obviously didn't have any money bet on track here, right? Because there was no fans here. But the overall betting for the season was up 8%. So the racing was strong. And let's be honest, people were sitting home with nothing to do. So they were betting on horses, right? But to have a COVID meet that's actually up and handle a giant amount like 8% was really rewarding.
Right. And once again, it's like you're reading over my shoulder because down here on my no, this is perfect. When the conversation goes as if we scripted it, it makes me very happy. 2015, for everybody listening, in 2015, Del Mar had 60 days of racing, 40 in the summer, 20 in the fall. They had a take of $667 million, the best season ever for the Del Mar racetrack. 2020, they get hit with a reduced schedule, 42 days of racing, 15 for the Bing Crosby session. And what do in the midst of pandemic and nobody in the stands? They chalk up their second best season ever and with a take of $662 million, $195.9 million for the Bing Crosby session alone. And I will tell you, Craig, I'm a native San Diegan, and there's no Chargers, and there's never been a Super Bowl trophy, never been a World Series trophy in this town, but I am such a proud San Diegan, and I was so damn proud of the way Del Mar handled this, and that you guys came through with the success that you did. When I first reached out to the Thoroughbred Club, it was merely with the purpose of saying, how are you guys doing this? And thank you. So, you know, please, from me and from First Off the Bench and the original Call to Post, make sure you pass that along to everybody, because it really means a lot to San Diegans like me for the job you guys have done.
Well, thanks for saying that. We appreciate it. That's
absolutely,
great.
Absolutely. So now here we are. We are 15 days away from opening day. And as I said in a podcast not that long ago with a different sport probably, but what a difference a year makes. You're going to have people in the stands. It's got to be like being stuck in a kelp bed and finally breaking the surface and that big breath of fresh air, especially when Del Mar is going to be the host venue for the 2021 Breeders' Cup. It must be, what a rush.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to that. Back in 2017, when we hosted it for the first time, you know, it's always tough the first time. We had a big learning curve, let's say that. So this second time around, it's a lot smoother, it's easier. You know, what was really gratifying about the first time around was we did a economic impact study for what the Breeders' Cup meant to San Diego County, and it came back that it was a $97 million economic impact. That's a huge number, and the reason that number was so big was that 75% of the attendees were from outside of Southern California.
Sure.
So the world came here, the Irish came, the Italians came, the French came, the Brits came, and then people came from Florida, New York, and all over the country. So talking to the restaurateurs about their experience in 17, the number one complaint they had was they ran out of their fancy wine too early. So now they've learned that these are the first class people who, you know, a lot of them fly in private. Palomar was as crowded as it ever been with private aircrafts. So I think as great as a job as we did in 17, and the Breeders' Cup people will tell you that by most benchmarks, that was the most successful Breeders' Cup ever. I think we're going to blow it out of the water this year in 21. So really looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And you're right. I mean, the sport of kings, it's called the sport of kings for a reason. And you do have those top shelf drinking people that are going to roll into town. It's only second, I would imagine, to the Dubai Jockey Club and their event that they host in February. But wow, I think that's fantastic. I was wondering, does Del Mar have not, you know, complete free reign, as it will, but do the Breeders' Cup people, does that organization send you the playbook and say, here's the outline, this is what we'd like you to follow? Or are they very hands-on and they send people out here to set up home in Del Mar for 60 days until the Breeders' Cup is passed?
They definitely have their own staff. They have their own racing people. They have their own marketing people. They have their own sponsorship people, own operational people. However, I think how hands-on they get depends a little bit on the track that they're coming to. And it just so happens that the Breeders' Cup staff are people that a lot of us here at Del Mar have known for decades. They're our friends. And it's been so fun to collaborate with them and work on things. And yeah, they don't say get the hell out of the way, we're taking over. We come in and we work on things together. And it was a lot of fun in 17. And we're already having, as you can imagine, tons of meetings already for this fall's event. And it's great to work with them. They'll probably come out here. They generally come out here 3 weeks or so beforehand and set up shop. And these people are great people to work with. We have a lot of fun with them.
That's great. That's good to hear. It's nice to hear that it's working as a team effort and not just the corporate guys, if you will, for lack of a better way to put it, that come in and say, move aside, we're here to do the job. So
right.
That's good to hear. So what special preparations does Del Mar have to do for the Breeders' Cup opposed to any other season?
So for the Breeders' Cup, a lot of the things people might not realize beforehand is we get a lot of foreign horses. So we have to set up, special areas for them so they quarantine. They need to quarantine for 48 hours, so special quarantine areas. The other thing about Breeders' Cup people don't realize is it's not just 2 days of racing. It's a week-long festival of events. Right. So we are planning parties every night of the week. We're going to have a 5K run, a golf tournament, a poker tournament, different dinners, beer fest. We've got events going on all week, not here at the track necessarily, but throughout Del Mar and throughout San Diego. So planning all those is a lot of work, but that's such a fun week, and it goes by so fast that it's really a labor of love. And as I said, we're working on it hard right now. Breeders' Cup tickets go on sale to the public on opening day of our summer meet, right? Friday, July 16th. It will 100% for sure sell out. And I don't know how many days they'll actually be on sale until we're totally out of tickets. But I think based on what I'm seeing, people are hungering to get out and do stuff. So I would imagine these Breeders' Cup tickets do not last long.
Oh yeah, as bad as pandemic was, this is going to be a real boon for Del Mar because people are going to be able to attend this year. And if you got to get on a plane and go somewhere, you might as well go to San Diego, California, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's how we sell it. I remember we made our pitch to the Breeders' Cup committee, back in about 2012 or 13. We put, here's the weather every day, 72, 72, 72, 72. And, you can imagine where they have the Breeders' Cup in some places. They had it in Canada once year, Woodbine, Kentucky. I mean, it's November, it could snow. Right. But we all know how beautiful the weather is and how beautiful the weather is here in San Diego in November. It's always beautiful. So they love that.
Very good. So when the horses come in, international horses, and I was explaining to somebody last year during the Breeders' Cup weekend, I think it was, I said, they get a stipend for traveling from outside North America or outside of the continental US. I think the stipend even goes to some of those Canadian horses. But I said, there's an added bonus when they have to bring the horses from Ireland, from Argentina, from Brazil, from anywhere like that. Mm-hmm. So do you have facilities for them there at Del Mar? Do you put them up at Rancho Santa Fe? How does that work?
You mean the horses or the
yes.
humans?
The horses.
Yeah, we have enough room for them here. During our fall meet, we don't fill up with the typical 2,000 horses that we have in the summer. So we've got adequate capacity here to handle all the Breeders' Cup horses in addition to the horses for the fall meet. We've got plenty of room.
Perfect. Now, here's one. And again, if this is a question that I shouldn't touch, just let me know. And I pretty much have an idea what the answer might be. But when you and I first talked on the phone, I asked if there was going to be a position taken by Del Mar with respect to the Bob Baffert situation, not the individual, but the situation. And since our initial phone call, it just seems like more and more things are surfacing. Even today, I noticed that 22 hours ago, there was something back on the list where the Jockey Club has stood up to the courts, to the judge in New York, where he is appealing the decision to keep him out of his stables, I should say, or his horses, out of Belmont, Saratoga, Aqueduct, and Jockey Club's position is no. It comes down to who's the guy responsible for the horses. So if we could tell you this was an isolated incident, we've never had to deal with it before, with that stable, with that trainer attached to it, it'd be one thing. But this seems to be a repeated effort here. So how long does Del Mar wait, or do they wait for the direction of the California Racing Association?
Yeah, you got it exactly right. We are governed by the California Horse Racing Board, and we will follow their lead. And what generally happens in a situation like this, when a racetrack bans a trainer, that is not binding in other states. However, if the racing jurisdiction there, like the Kentucky Horse Racing Board, not Churchill Downs, but the Kentucky Horse Racing Board, if they were to suspend him, then the California Horse Racing Board and then Del Mar would uphold that suspension. So if the Kentucky Horse Racing Board says he can't race for a year, then we have to listen to that and abide by that. But if it's just a suspension by the track itself, Churchill Downs or Belmont or Saratoga, that has no bearing on us. And again, we will listen to who governs us, the California Horse Racing Board.
And is there any fear at all? Because one thing I've seen since the Kentucky Derby rulings and the Churchill Downs rulings is there was already that, the group of fans, if you will, the group of bettors who said, wait, I had that place ticket. I had that show ticket. And what you're telling me is my horse should have been the winner, or is going to be declared the winner, but I can't collect. And I don't know where they stand with their class action suit. What kind of concerns does that raise?
So the betting law is very, very clear that when the race goes official on the track that day and the winnings are paid out, that's it. Even if a horse is after the fact DQ'd for whatever reason, that has no bearing on the mutual payouts. That law is very clear. However, if there's a class action suit about, against Bob Baffert or against somebody else that's involved, I really have no comment on that. I wouldn't know.
Certainly.
But these have come up in the past, and the law is very clear that whatever the official payouts are at the time on the race day, that's what it is, and that's unfortunately. I bet the race. I would have benefited if Mandolin would have won and Hot Rod Charlie were second, but unfortunately, I got no claim.
Yeah. That I think. I don't think that we're in the minority with that remark. That's for sure.
Yep.
So opening day, what can we expect?
Well, opening day, unfortunately, is not going to be back to the opening day that we've learned to experience in the past. We are 100% capacity of our seated areas. It's actually the same as the Padres. The difference is the Padres have 40,000 plus seats. At the racetrack, we only have about 15,000 seats. So that's going to be the attendance on opening day. It's going to be about 15, 16,000, where a usual opening day would be 35,000. So as you can imagine, when tickets went on sale a few weeks ago, we sold out in 2 days. So opening day is sold out. And this is a terrible message to have to say, but the reality is if you don't have a ticket for opening day, please don't come, because you won't be able to get in. We don't want to have to turn people away when they get here, but if you don't have a ticket, we can't let you in. It's just a COVID protocol. We hope that sometime during the season that we can change that and allow for general admission to attend the races. But for right now, that's not the case, and it will not change by opening day. So I can tell you the attendance for opening day right now, it's going to be right around 15, 16,000. And unfortunately, we're sold out.
Right. And it is the reduced calendar again. You're not running, you have more off days than just a Tuesday or Wednesday as it has been in the past. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. The meet this summer is 31 days, Thursday through Sundays. A couple of Thursdays are blacked out, but overall 31 days. We close on Labor Day Monday, and then we'll come back for a 16-day meet in the fall, which will include the Breeders' Cup on opening weekend.
That's fantastic. Well, I always try to, when I talk horse racing with people, especially those who aren't familiar, I say, have you ever looked at the jockey lineup that you can go see at Del Mar? This is an all-star game every day of the season. I mean, it just amazes me, the jockeys that are going to be here. And to think of what it's going to be come Breeders' Cup time. Wow.
Flavien Prat has really proven himself to be one of the best in the world, right?
Yeah.
And Rispoli is a wonderful jockey, and then of course we have Cedillo, and we have a new jockey coming out this year, a veteran. Jersey Joe Bravo is coming to ride at Del Mar this summer.
Is he really?
Be fun. He is coming from the East Coast. We're going to have strings of horses from Mike Maker sending horses, Mark Cassing sending horses. So, we're thinking we're going to have a really good racing product this summer. We're excited. And I tell you what, Jim, I'm going to call my shot here. You ready? People can say they heard it here first. The all-time record, other than Breeders' Cup days, for wagering on one day at Del Mar is 25 million and change. I'm going to call my shot right now and predict that on on Pacific Classic Day, Saturday, August 21, we're going to beat that record.
August
21st, Saturday,
August
August
21st.
21st.
Okay,
Yes.
folks, the original call to post, once again, breaking strides, breaking news. Here it is. You heard it here first, and you heard it from the horse's mouth, if you will. No pun intended. That's fantastic, and I'm looking forward to it. Craig, this has been just wonderful. Again, I can't appreciate your time. Words just don't express. Thank you so much. It's very enlightening. I appreciate you putting up with the some of the questions and some of the comments, and always like the insight. Can't wait to be out at the track and see these guys. And you know what? I've always thought, because I'm not a big guy, and because I'm a native, I actually saw Shoemaker run at Del Mar more than once when I was younger. But if I drop about 5-10 more pounds, you could throw some silks on me. I can just go walking around. Nobody would know the difference.
I like it. I like it. I'll keep that in mind.
There you are. There you are. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Craig Dado with the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club. Thank you so much for your time. And we hope to speak to Craig again later in the season. And if not, maybe some of those behind the scenes folks that continue to make Del Mar be the special place that it is. Thank you, Craig.
All right. Thank you, Raider Jim. I'll talk to you soon.
Welcome back, folks, to the original Call to Post. What a great interview that was to get us ready for Del Mar opening day and really looking ahead to the Breeders' Cup at Del Mar. And now we will bring in Raider Jim, who was so gracious with his time to get that interview and was able to kind of figure out what was going on. But Raider Jim, I'll ask you, what were your takeaways from that interview that you had?
Well, it all started last fall before they went into the Bing Crosby session. And then again, right after, I reached out to the Thoroughbred Club just to ask what was it like to have to handle the challenges of COVID. And as you just heard from Craig, it was more than anybody could ever imagine. If you do a little bit of research on it, or if you followed it last year, what the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club was nothing less than exemplary in thoroughbred and in business standards. I mean, just a fantastic, phenomenal job. He was very open. There was no hesitations, as we all just heard, with any of the questions. And what really stood out to me is sometimes you hear a marketing executive, you hear somebody as the marketing executive, and you figure it's going to be glitz and show and say all the right buzzwords. But it was very obvious before we sat down and did the interview, and while we did the interview, and post-interview, this group, the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club, it sounds like every one of them is just like Craig, which is very hands-on, very involved. And that really speaks to why they have the success they do. So I can't thank Craig enough. And again, I can't offer any more congratulations and kudos to the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club for a phenomenal 2020 run. And I'm sure they're going to do the same thing again this summer and again when the Bing Crosby rolls around.
Yeah, and it's a great, thing to come back to. Obviously, I don't think anyone wanted last year to happen the way it went down. But if you are going to kind of pull yourself out of it, or at least have, opening things up, what a great year to have it with the Breeders' Cup, of course, coming in November. But of course, before we get into November, we have the I guess usual or the conventional, something we're all used to as San Diegans for the last, for at least my entire life. And for most of our entire lives, it is the summer meet at Del Mar. Will begin tomorrow. Opening day will be July 16th. And as always, the opening day premier race will be the, sorry, I missed the date. There it is. Race number 9 going off at 6 o'clock Pacific time, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Do the math in between. It is the $100,000 Oceanside Stakes, going a mile on the turf. Raider Jim, I will give you the honors for getting us started on the Oceanside.
Very good. And first and foremost, anybody who's listening who's in San Diego, who's in Southern California, and you go, oh my gosh, it's opening day, I think I'm going to go. Do not go near the Del Mar racetrack tomorrow. And that's a very serious statement, because they have been sold out. They are sold out. There is no walk-up admission, so you won't be turned away. not only will you be turned away, you will have spent all that time in traffic, and you will have made traffic bad for those behind you and around you who do have a ticket in hand and are going to make their way to the track. Even the after parties are all sold out right now. So set it aside, get out there on Saturday or Sunday, and then pay attention to the calendar, because down the road here in a couple of weeks, they will start running Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It is a slightly reduced schedule from what they used to run in the past. But anyway, on to the feature race for opening day. And our opening day feature is not the $1 million purse that you see at the Haskell Stakes at Monmouth. It's $100,000. It is the Run Happy Oceanside Stakes. But what a great race it's going to be. One horse that stands out to me as an in-the-money pick with definitely a chance to pull an upset here. And that is going to be the 6th horse, Dream Shake. Now, what's really nice about Dream Shake is, unless you follow racing from coast to coast, the jockey may not be familiar to you. But when you talk about the All-Star, the Hall of Famer Mike Smith, when you talk about the new kids on the block, Flavian Pratt, Abel Cedillo, Umberto Rispoli, those names. This is Jersey Joe Bravo. This guy is a legend and on the East Coast. And for him to be coming out here and running at Del Mar, what a rush. This is another one of those, add the name to the red carpet when you have all the jockeys walking out on opening day. So watch Jersey Joe as he rides in the feature race tomorrow on horse number 6. He is on horse number 6, Dream Shake. But the horse that stands out to me that I think is probably going to, even with the outside draw that he has, it's going to be What Makes Sammy Run out of Kentucky. That's a Mike Glatt horse with Flavian Pratt on board, and you can't beat that combination right now at 7-2. And I think that that's his horse, his race to win, his race to lose. But again, Flavian's going to ride in the 9 race. I don't believe he's riding after that. And then he's going to be on his way back to ride in the Haskell Stakes. So he's going to be a busy guy for the next 48 hours. After that, you see some familiar names out there. We have talked about Petruccio in the past. Over the spring we did. But if I was going to pick another horse to put on my card, or another horse that I will have on my card, I am going to tell you that Flashiest has a chance. Flashiest has a chance with Abel Cedillo on board. So my 3 for this race in the feature race are going to be What Makes Sammy Run, Dream Shake, and Flashiest, the 8 horse.
Yeah, I like Dream Shake. I think Dream Shake here at 4-1 is there's a lot of value in this race if you can find the winner. Obviously, we're not looking at a 6-5. I don't think we're going to see anything less than 2-1 when it's all said and done, and even 2-1 might be a little lower than what we'll see. I like Dream Shake. I like What Makes Sammy Run, but I'm looking actually at the first 2 post positions with Harbored Memories and Fighting Force. First, with the 1 horse, Harbored Memories, this is a horse that, any horse that can debut and put up a 78, didn't win, but still in a maiden special weight. That's a really nice performance, and essentially has just gotten better as the years have gone on, or the last 2 years, I should say, have gone on. Finally broke its maiden earlier this year at Santa Anita, where it ran in 81, and last time out got into an optional claiming race, 100,000, put up an 88, which we're probably going to have to improve. There's no doubt about it. But this is a horse at 8-1. I think this is a place show situation. I think it can definitely get in the money. Fighting Force is 6-1. It's the 2 horse. It's been in the money in 5 of its 10 career runs. This is an interesting horse only because it's kind of the opposite of Harbored Memories. Harbored Memories, not really expected too much of, already has been a great surprise. I mean, it only cost $5,500 to breed this horse, and it's already made over 6 figures for Harbored Memories. Fighting Force, kind of the opposite, has made more money, but it cost $400,000 for their ownership group. but you do have Drayden Van Dyke coming aboard, which is a huge step up. Raider Jim kind of talked about it. This is a horse that's been in the last, year and a half for a 3-year-old to have ran 10 races already. It's been Belmont, Keeneland, Gulfstream, and sticking out there, and obviously now shipping out west. That is a bit of a question mark for Fighting Force, but those two right there at 6-1 and 8-1, with the 2-horse and 1-horse respectively, they're going to keep it. I'm going to keep an eye on that. Definitely a place show pick. But like I said, I really do think the 6-horse Dream Shake, with Peter Urton and Joe Bravo, the debut, I guess, the West Coast debut of Joe Bravo, who I would kind of assume is maybe wants to come out here for a Breeders' Cup prep. I'm sure if it's up to him, he would like to get as many mounts as possible. Yeah, and I think that's a great sign for Del Mar, even with Mike Smith kind of saying no to Monmouth this weekend. I'm going to stay on the West Coast, similar to what he did last year. I don't think he left when the Kentucky Derby. There was a joke that it was Mike Smith and the kids at the weekend at Del Mar with the Derby. But anyways, so you're going to see Joe Bravo, right away, really. For a guy who like you kind of brought up, more of an East Coast, I think kind of the East Coast Umberto Rispoli, because I don't think there's a ton of people that know about Rispoli on the East Coast. I think it's the same here for Bravo on the West Coast. But if he can get a win in the Oceanside, it would be a heck of a introduction to most of us.
Yeah.
Sorry?
What a coming out party.
Yeah. And it would be a great start.
You are absolutely right about the 2-horse, because Drayden Van Dyke loves Del Mar. It's almost like his home course. He loves the West Coast. And yeah, he's got a great chance to finish in the money on that horse. I would watch the line on the 5-horse Petruccio, because that is Mike Smith, Richard Mandela. Great combination on that horse. And if any 2 guys are going to make a horse, give you its best and give it its all, it's going to be those 2. Just as a side note, if you are watching and you are a horse fan, if you really wonder why Brandon and I seem to get overly excited when we talk about the races at Del Mar, all you have to do is look at the card on this race and go down the list of jockeys. And it is, we just had the Major League Baseball All-Star game. That's got nothing on the lineup of jockeys we have in this feature race, $100,000 race, and you've got Mike Smith, Flavian Pratt, Victor Espinosa, Drayden Van Dyke, Umberto Rispoli, Jersey Joe Bravo. I mean, my gosh, it is just an all-star lineup. So don't sell yourselves short by missing out on Del Mar races this summer.
Yeah, big time. And one last thing on Petruccio. This is a horse you're not going to see a Mike Smith or Richard Mandela, let alone when they're combined or they're teaming up. You're not going to see that horse have a 12-1 morning line that has Smith aboard and Richard Mandela training. That's definitely something that's going to catch your eye. But to be honest, you do look back at the Singletary in April, when this horse was essentially almost even money favorite and struggled. So I think that's kind of a reason, but I think 12-1 is a bit of an overreaction there. So that's a great call there from Raider Jim. Moving on to Saturday, which as Raider Jim talked about, you might want to still got to do a little research, see if there's tickets available, but definitely not opening day unless you have your tickets already. But moving on to that Saturday, you got 2 feature races. I guess the co-main event, if you will, the Asunitas will be an $80,000 purse, an ungraded stakes race. This is going to go a mile on the turf for 3-year-old fillies and up. I'll take the lead here on this one. The first horse that jumps out to me is the 4 in Tapwater. You have, what do you know, the Richard Mandela, Mike Smith duo. And conversely, in this race, the morning line is 7-2. That's kind of more than likely what you've seen. This is a horse that has essentially been ridden exclusively by either Flavian Pratt or Mike Smith. So once again, that kind of just tells you how highly the jockeys think of this horse. It is a 5-year-old. 6 of its 10 runs have finished in the money. And back in April. It did run a 93 on the turf at Santa Anita. Will need to improve on that. I will also be looking at the 2-horse as I pull my notes up. Setamar. This is a very well-traveled horse. Been in the money 13 of its 18 runs, has made nearly 300,000. Last time out, ran in the Buena Vista. It was a grade 2, which is, 2 or 3 steps above where we're talking about here. Struggled a bit, but does have a history of running in the 90s at Del Mar. We go back to last August. This is a horse that nearly was able to bring down Pulpit Rider as a 6-1 shot. So it does have some familiarity with Del Mar. 6 of 7 of Del Mar turf runs have ended in the money at 4-1. Definitely someone to look at. I will also just call out Nasty. This is a horse sired by Straight Sense, which is, obviously one of the best that have ever done it. Richard Baltus, similar there, one of the best has ever done it. But last time out, this horse really did struggle as a 5-1 shot in the Monrovia. Once again, a grade 2. Big drop in class here. Has lost out to Heather's Gray, who was also running in this race, but did win the Lady Shamrock, where it did run an 88, which, once again, if it's able to improve on that 88 or even mirror that, I think it will probably find itself in the money one way or another. The last horse I do want to talk about is Impo Malia's Girl. The 5-horse, probably butchered that name, but this is an interesting horse as a 6-year-old. Kind of, I feel a bit of a second wind in its career. Early on was running in these kind of races in the second, the grade 2s and grade 3s. Had a huge run at Santa Anita this past March where it put up a 92. And even last time out, ran well in the Wilshire, that grade 3, ran an 85. Once again, willing to improve, but has a history of running in the 90s on turf. I don't want to, say it's its last chance, but definitely kind of towards the end of its career. Would be interesting to see if what that horse has left. Not going to probably make it onto my ticket, but definitely a horse I wanted to talk about as one that might be one of those that, catches fire late in its career. This could possibly be one of them. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts here on the Asunitas?
Yeah, this is one of those interesting races. Anytime you get above the 3-year-olds and it's the mixed field of 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, males, females, it's almost an anybody's race type thing unless you have somebody that's just been on fire. For example, the 9-horse Brook, the Chilean horse, 5-year-old out of at 5-2 right now. Umberto Rispoli on board though, and it's a Michael McCarthy trained horse, but the horse does not really have that much going for it in 2021. Not to say that it can't perform, and as you and I always allude to, there's a reason that the handicappers have this horse at 5-2 right now. So you want to keep your eyes on that morning line on the 9-horse. I do like Epidemia's Girl. Again, that's Jersey Joe Bravo and Baltus. That's a great combination at 6-1. Definitely think that that's worth putting underneath on a ticket, as is Tapwater. Like you, I think 4 Tapwater, Mike Smith, Richard Mandela. What do you say about the combination and the horse? They're going to make it perform. It's going to do real well. So I like 4, I like 5. I do like 9 as a fill-in underneath. And then I would also go with Setamar, the 2-horse.
Yeah. And I think one of the main things I like to do as a bettor is, when I look at Brook, 5-2, kind of like what you said, maybe that's too short of a price for me. But I think you could look at those 2 runs and by comparison, they're in grade 3. So obviously you're really going to need a hell of a run, and 89 and 87 aren't terrible. I think they'll definitely play here if they can do that. This is a horse that ran only once in 2020. Now, obviously, there's a lot of reasons why 2020 was one of those years, but the only time it did run, it was in Argentina. So really made its U.S. debut in January of this year, has only 2 U.S. runs. So I can at least sit here and maybe at least say, hey, that could possibly be a reason why. Now, once again, 5-2, you don't want to be making excuses for horses on your ticket at 5-2. But Brook, like you said, a horse based out of Chile, or at least bred in Chile and spent most of its career in South America. Keep an eye there. Would not be surprised if we see a nice little run there to kind of maybe signal to all of us that, hey, that this horse's US legs, if you will, have arrived, and it's ready to roll. So moving on to the final race we'll be talking about here on this podcast. It is the San Diego Handicap. It is a grade 2 going 1 mile and 16th. The purse will be $250,000, 250,000 for 3-year-olds and up. Once again, dirt, mile and 16. Raider Jim, I'll give you the honors on this one to start us off.
Yeah, hands down favorite for me is going to be the 4-horse Royal Ship out of Brazil. That's Mike Smith, Richard Mandela. Again, good combination. 5-year-old should make a great run on this race. This $250,000 purse. I'm sorry if you already mentioned that. And we're running at 1 1/16 mile. So it's going to have a couple turns in there that are going to be key to the race. Tripoli out of Kentucky, Tiago Pereira on board, 8-1 right now. Definitely a horse you want to keep an eye on the morning line. And then also I like the post horse, Rushy. So Rushy, Royal Ship, the 4-horse. I like Tripoli, the 8-horse. Also like Express Train. I'll keep my eye on the numbers for Mimosa, the 6-horse, but Express Lane, I think John Shareff's always has a good horse out there. He's got Hernandez on board at 3-1 right now. Pretty safe ticket if you put 1, 4, 5, and 8. Combination those on a ticket. And then if you want, you might want to look at throwing in the 6-horse underneath someone.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on in that in terms of Royal Ship. Definitely the class here in terms of the buyer numbers. Last 2 runs in the Californian and the Gold Cup, the 108, 105, that'll play here. That's going to get the job done. Already does have a win over Express Train. Kind of spent its early part of its year last year dueling with Mo Forza. That was a lot of fun in some of the grade 2s last year at Del Mar and Santa Anita. The one thing I will say that I do like about Express Train here, obviously it's a little tough. Royal Ship beat it last time out in the Gold Cup, but this is a horse that has been essentially a 93 or better on dirt for the last 1.5 years. And that's really something you have to keep an eye on. Obviously the Santa Anita Handicap, this horse beat Maxfield. I can bring up Maxfield because this is a horse in Maxfield that won the Stephen Foster Stakes that has already punched its ticket to the biggest race of the year and the Longines Classic at the Breeders' Cup. So it has a history. Now, of course, even in that race, it ended up finishing second as Idol was the one who brought it down. But the Santa Anita Handicap, this is a horse in Express Train that while might not have beaten Royal Ship, this is a horse that has beaten some big time race horses. Has the pedigree to do it. I do also want to bring up the 6-horse as well. I think you touched on Mimosa, but obviously the pedigree with Uncle Mo. And this is an interesting horse because similar to what I talked about in the last horse, I forget the name that I butchered, but Mimosa cost 175,000, has more than made up for that with its 11 runs in the money and its 16 career runs, but it's starting to hit its second stride now as a 4-year-old. Early on was running in the Oklahoma Derby, ran in the Fayetteville, grade 2s and grade 3s. This is also a horse, I mean, it was a very hard long shot, but ran in the Arkansas Derby. So kind of shows you where this horse was as a 3-year-old, kind of fell off, was stuck in some optional claiming, stuck in some allowances, and really didn't run too well. And then was essentially sent out to kind of the smaller tracks on the East Coast, has won 2 straight in an ungraded stakes race and a grade 3 last time out, and really dominated, including beating CZ Rocket last time out. So I think that's Lone Star, it looks like. But Mimosa is one to keep an eye on. It's 6-1. But I really do think you hit the nail on the head with Rushy. I love, the one thing my dad used to always teach me is one thing to look for is horses that are dropping in class. And Rushy is definitely a horse that fits that bill. Obviously, dropping from the Gold Cup, which is a grade 1, now to the San Diego Handicap, which is grade 2. Not a huge drop in class, but I guess the one thing that kind of turns me off in terms of that is Royal Ship and Express Train both dropping down in class essentially the same way. Both of those horses beat Rushy. So Rushy is going to have to improve on its best run so far of its career. But as a 4-year-old, that's definitely not something that would be unexpected. This is a horse, I think this entire weekend, even going back to the Haskell, there is a lot of value in a lot of these races. Even Hot Rod Charlie at 6-5. I don't think it's going to end there because there are so many other options to get some money from people who are looking for some value plays. So a ton of value this weekend. And not only is that great news, but the fact that, Del Mar is open, the fans like myself and Raider Jim and yourselves, if you're in the area, or your local track, more than likely you will be able to go enjoy some live horse racing, and something I know I've missed and I'm sure you all have missed for quite some time. As nice as it is to, with the technology, it makes things a lot easier than it used to, obviously, to do some offshore betting. There's nothing better than seeing it live and screaming along with all your other bettors as you try and get your horse in. So with that, Raider Jim, final thoughts, anything we miss, anything else you'd like to bring up before we head on out?
No, again, the fun at Del Mar starts tomorrow. It's going to go through Labor Day weekend, as we've already said. Try to get out when they have some of the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series races, because you're going to see the creme de la creme on the track, and those horses, at least one of those horses, every winner in the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series races, you will see again in November, that weekend of the Breeders' Cup. Tomorrow, again, for opening, first post is going to be at 2 p.m. Keep your eye on Twitter. I didn't get a chance to do it today because due to technical difficulties, my computer didn't want to work. But as I did last year, opening weekend, I'll try to put a daily double combo out there, opening day, Saturday and Sunday as well. And then if it's successful, then maybe I'll keep doing that. And if not, just pretend you don't know me. Tell them Brandon gave you the picks.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it. No big deal. I'm just happy someone's listening to me at this point. But, I definitely echo what Raider Jim said in terms of kind of looking ahead and getting ready for that Breeders' Cup. It is, even in a normal year, it would be very, you're seeing the best of the best, or at least the hopefuls of the best, the qualifiers, if you will, the conference tournaments to get into the big dance, if you will. And I think what's even better this year is all the top trainers, all the top connections. If you were to pick, or if they were to pick where your ticket is punched, what better place than the track that will be hosting that same race later on in the year? So you're going to see the best out of everyone. All the best horses have certain races at Del Mar circled. I believe the Bing Crosby Stakes, not the season, but the Bing Crosby Stakes, I believe, gets you into one of the sprints or one of the turfs. I might have that backwards. It might even be a turf sprint. I'm not sure, but it will get you in there. I believe that will be our first Breeders' Cup Challenge race at Del Mar. But look, we're going to keep you updated all summer long, whether it's at Del Mar or anywhere else in North America. If it falls on a Friday or a Saturday, we will break it all down for you, culminating with, of course, as we've said numerous times, not only us breaking down every race of the Breeders' Cup, but us being there live, as once again, we're going to be getting it done tomorrow, waiting in the queue line to get our tickets for both days of the Breeders' Cup. And we cannot wait. And you can be with there, at least following along with us all season long. Of course, once again, a reminder, follow Raider Jim at Raider Jim 1090. And myself at Ferst Report, FERST, and the podcast network at Off the Bench 1-2. But with that, thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the original Call to Post, presented by the Ferst Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It is time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to you all very soon, and we hope to see you at the window.
Bet smart, bet safe, and enjoy.